Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Kristen Donnelly of the Good Doctors of Abbey Research, and I am a social scientist with a PhD who is obsessed with culture, both lived and popular, and I'm also obsessed with people's stories. And in this series, Welcome to My World, we are going to be spending, 20, 30 minutes with somebody who is not me and not my worldview and learning a little bit about them so that hopefully we can, pull an Atticus Finch and walk around in the shoes of somebody else for a little bit and expand our empathy of the world. And today I am joined by somebody I have literally known all of his life, except for maybe 2 days. You may notice the family resemblance. This is my little brother, Brian. Brian Nielsen is the CEO of Abbey Companies. He is an avid Liverpool fan. Also very, very good with solving problems that involve technology and people. He's married and has a perfect angel baby whose name is Sophia that we adore. And I think the most important thing to this conversation is that even though he's my business partner, he's also kind of my boss. And so we can talk a little bit how we do that dynamic. And we recently took over our father's company that he built. It sounds so cheap for what actually took place. And so we want to talk a little bit about that and kind of what legacy means, and then how Brian got to where he is, because you guys all know me and my experience, but you don't know him and how incredibly different and rich his is. So Brian, thank you.
Hello, happy to be here.
Thank you. So, any job in the world that you could have had and you came back here and chose this, why? Actually, first, tell us a little bit about tell the audience what we do, and then tell them why you love it here.
All right. So first off, we are a dye and chemical manufacturer, mainly dyes. The chemical side is a lot less nowadays. Our chemicals come more in the form of epoxies, leak detection fluids, that type of stuff. So when we first started, when our dad purchased it back in 1991, it was just dyes. They had no other product lines. And then throughout his tenure here, he has grown the company, grown the product lines. He's calling me right now.
What a great example.
That's a great example of family business right there. He's calling me in the middle of an interview about family business. So that over the years, he just kept, trying to bring in new business, new product lines. And so because of that, now we are a dye and chemical manufacturer. The company that he purchased back in around early 2000s was it was called Bonded Products. It was mainly some government contracts, the leak detection fluids I mentioned earlier, some joint sealing compounds, that kind of stuff. And then we came along in probably the early 2010s ish, somewhere around there.
You started in 11 because
11.
You started as he's calling me now too. You started when I left for Belfast. Mm-hmm. So I left for my PhD and you were working like ops labor level.
Yeah.
And then you guys, but it was like part-time. And then that Christmas we talked about you doing full-time and not doing college. That was the family decision, is that you weren't going to do college. Talk to us a little bit about that.
So I did try the college things, we all know. I did 3 years at Baylor University. And then I guess it was fall 2011. I did not really want to do school anymore. And it was mom and dad were kind of like, hey, why don't you just come home? Maybe you can take some time off, finish off your degree, later. Come, work for the company, get a job up here, just kind of stay around home and then figure things out. So I said, sure, you know what, I'll come home. As soon as I was home, I was back yet again for probably the 50th time in my life working part-time for the family business. I was just doing, manual labor tests, the kind of things that I grew up doing. And then the guy that was in the plant manager role was going to be stepping down. And Dad said, there's no better training for a future than on-the-job training. That school would never be able to teach you a lot of the stuff that you would learn just learning how to do this job. And if this is something you want to do, you want to take over this company, this is the best education you're going to get. So I said, sure, why not? That sounds awesome. So I decided to forego school. My plan at the time was originally to learn a little bit while I could from Dad while he was still here and still able to teach me, and then I'd go back to school. And then, the crash course of Abbey Color happened, and that was a lot more labor intensive than schooling. So, I just decided this school wasn't for me, and that I got my education in Abbey Color 101, and I couldn't be more happy.
Yeah. And so like we talked a lot when we were growing up that when we were growing up, neither one of us wanted to take this place over. This isn't something that we wanted to do. We had different dreams. And it switched earlier for you than for me. So by the time you took over as ops manager, had you decided that you were taking over? Like, had you made that mental switch?
Yeah, I think I'm like a lot of kids of business and family businesses, like I think we're very similar. When you grow up, you not necessarily resent it, but it's not, you don't really appreciate it. You don't understand.
Yeah, and you don't
what
get
it
it.
is.
Like you don't understand like why it's taking up so much time. And yeah.
It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So you have mixed feelings about it. I know I've talked to other people that have been in the same situation as us, and they said the same thing. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be involved somehow, but probably not doing anything at Abbey Color necessarily. Maybe I would do something with Dabby, go into our own business, that kind of thing. And then, when I came back and I was doing that part-time gig, and I was working with guys, it only took me about, I don't know, a few hours of being here again, because it's been a few years since I've been here, and I was back into the swing of things, and I was catching up with the guys and reporting to them, and I just realized, like, this was, of all the places I've been, like, this is where I'm happiest. This is where I feel fulfilled. Like these guys that some of them I've known since I was 4 years old. I mean, they're family to me. This is a huge part of their lives and a huge part of our life, and it's just, I don't know, just everything just kind of clicked. It just made sense that this was what I should be doing.
Yeah, and we're very lucky as a family business that some of the folks that were Dad's first hires are still with us. And when Brian talks about growing up with these guys, like he worked for some of them when he was like a 13-year-old soccer player after soccer practice. It really is kind of in our blood in a way. So that's 2011. You started. I wasn't in the picture at that point though. Like that. So that was like you were going to take it over and shoulder it entirely. Knowing what you know now, do you feel like that was naive?
Yeah, it was definitely naive. I think back like the VP who was here at the time. I remember in a meeting with myself, our current VP, and Dad. And he was like, I don't think Brian, this is a lot. I don't know if Brian's ready for this. I was like, no,
I got it, no problem.
I'll be fine, no problem. Little did I know about the wolves den that I was being thrown into, but it worked out. So
yeah, and you're somebody who loves a on-the-job training more than a theoretical training. So crises that you could live through were pretty important.
Yeah, and we had a lot of them early on, so it was really helpful for me. But I mean, and I think that's kind of why school wasn't for me necessarily. I love that, like, trial by fire, hands-on problem solving type approach, which is obviously the type of lessons they try and teach you in school. But in terms of an applicable,
you can't really
life lesson, I just learned so much better that way, and it definitely was evident. I mean, I probably could tell you more about business within the first 3 months than within the first 3 years of business school. That's just the way it worked out for me.
When you're in business spaces, like other kind of CEO spaces, do people give you crap for not having the pedigree in that way? Or,
I mean, I've been going to meetings with executives and higher level people for probably about 5 or 6 years now, and it hasn't come up one time. Okay. I don't think we've ever, like, I've said I've gone to Baylor and I didn't graduate, and that's about like the extent of the conversation.
Okay.
For the most part, people don't really care, necessarily where you got an education. They just care that you're doing your job good now, and that if you're bringing value to the table, that's all that really matters at the end of the day. And however you get to a place that finds that value, in my experience, finding it a different way than usual is just really helpful.
Yeah, it's another kind of intersection of diversity in that, like when you and Dad and I are around the table, Dad has an MBA, he has an accounting degree. I have a lot of letters, but no practical business application with those.
There are a lot of letters.
I have a lot of letters, except for maybe HR. Like I can bring HR to the table. And then you have no letters, but the most hands-on experience when we're making decisions. And I think most of our decisions would be lesser if one of those pieces was gone.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that team approach is what makes us successful in the way we are, and that we're all so different in where we come from. And that helps us be successful that way.
So I get this question all the time, and listeners, I want you to know that he will answer this honestly, because
Oh boy.
is it weird working with your family, and is it weird being your older sister's boss?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, all of that is very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like family business is it's great because you have a group of like-minded people who all kind of they all have the common goal. You don't have to worry about buy-in as much as you do from other people because you all have the same the same end goal from all this. But because of that, I mean, your work, it doesn't stop. I mean, how many times are we sitting at dinner, as a family, and we're talking about the weather, and somehow that weather affects the temperatures inside the building. And hey, did you check the temperatures? Are you making sure that the heat's on this weekend? Are we protecting the sprinklers?
Yeah.
Or like every decision that we make in our personal lives.
Yeah, about to say, or like this past Saturday night, you called me so I could see my niece on FaceTime, and we ended up talking about the Instagram plan.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a family check-in call that turned into a business call.
Yeah, but sorry, I interrupted you because I want you to make that point about the
Yeah.
personal life decisions.
Yeah, it affects. I mean, it affects every single aspect of you, and it also puts strains on those family relationships. Like a lot of people in their adult lives have very friendly, kind of based relationships with their family members, and it's very surfacey, and they'll call and they check in once a month. It's all very joyous, and like every time spent with their family is happy. It doesn't really happen that
or
way.
It's by choice.
Or it's by choice.
Or it's by choice, or because I've got lots, like some of your friends have better relationships with their families than mine do.
Mm-hmm.
But my friends can control their interaction with their biological families at a level that you and I do not have the luxury of.
Yeah, it's you're constantly on all the time. And I mean, I've never been at a high level of a non-family business, but I would think that adds a definite degree of difficulty to it that a non-family business wouldn't have. And and in terms of being your boss, incredibly weird. It's I mean, just in general, being the boss of a lot of people here that were my bosses for so long is strange. But yeah, having to give directions to your sister and now your father as well. Very weird dynamic. But
so what was buy-in like with the folks that knew you as the tiny squirt boy? Like, what was that how did you earn that trust?
I think my dad did a really good job of setting me up for that. He had me working for them and doing almost every job in this building. There's probably only one or two out of the hundreds of jobs you can do around here that I haven't done. So the fact that I knew everything that they were doing, I could come in and be their boss as someone who understands their roles and as someone who knows them very well. I think it was pretty well received. I mean, I'm sure that there was stuff I didn't know about. There were grumblings, the boss's kids coming in, all the normal stuff that you expect to have. But I have a really great relationship especially with the guys that have been here a long time that I've known since I was a kid. And I've always shown them the respect that when they were my boss, and they kind of just reciprocated it right back to me. So it was pretty seamless.
Yeah, when people ask me about that transition, like, was it weird? One of the things I always say is that we were always taught that there are experts in this building that aren't us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't matter. Like, part of our job as leaders is to make sure that everyone in the building can do their job to the best of their ability. Like that's primarily what our job is.
Mm-hmm.
And their job is to make sure we serve the customers the best. And our job is to empower them to do that. That's kind of the chain of command. And so I have no idea how to do that best when we're making hematoxylin, but our employee who has been doing hematoxylin for 5 years certainly does. And so when I go down there, it's a lot more questions than orders. It's a lot of like, hey, I know this has to happen. Let's figure out together how to make this happen. Because we should say too, when we say we're small, we're under 30 people. And so everybody has multiple jobs all the time. And you have to be able to trust expertise. And also you got to lead with questions more than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, they're gonna teach you most of what you need to know anyways. We're very lucky that we have such an amazing group of employees behind us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, we've hit lucky at least 19,000 times in our lives.
Yeah. I mean, we've struck gold. We have some real gems.
Yeah.
So that makes it a lot easier just having high quality of person in the building. But yeah, it did go well.
So thinking about legacy, which you and I have talked about a lot, since 20 for about 5 years now, which is when something happened in our family that kind of really showed that Brian and I had to get real intentional about what the next steps were. I was also obsessed with Hamilton at the time, and so it was a very have I bothered you with it lately?
I'm just saying it hasn't stopped. It's not
no,
like
I've
all
just
of a
gotten
sudden
quieter
you're no
with it.
longer a fan of Hamilton.
Yeah, I've gotten quieter with it. So I've controlled myself a little bit more. It's okay. You should know that Brian has a Captain America shield on his wall. I have a signed Hamilton poster on mine. You can see all my Funkos. Like, we've been best friends our whole lives for a reason. Your 30th birthday, we went to Universal Hogwarts together and did a sibling trip where we bought wands and walked around. That's us. So
it's true story.
And we're both excited to do it with your daughter someday. So when we talk about legacy, though, like, that was a real question of how do we take what Dad built, which he had a business partner for the first 12 years of this,
About,
all like 10, 12 years. But since 2003 has been doing it entirely solo. And then we're going to step in a really different world that is also the same in some ways, but like a really different world. We have completely different skill sets, and but we also have the gift of growing up in this. So when we talked about legacy, the thing that we always put forward, I'll say, is the mission statement, which for our family is to impact lives and create wealth. And tell us about what wealth means a little bit more, B.
Well, I mean, wealth means the obvious thing. It means, finances to people, but to us, it means a lot more than that. Wealth is the quality of life for not just our customers, but also our employees. It's really adding value to their lives. So whether it be, just paying them with a paycheck, that's wealth, but also maybe helping them, maybe they don't really fully understand how to get their kids student loans, or maybe they don't, they need help trying to buy a house, or they need help with any other of the insane amount of things that life throws our way. In order to invest into the wealth of the company, we feel that we really need to invest into that in our employees as well, and to really grow them. That makes us grow and succeed. Excuse me. So when we say to create wealth, we mean so much more than money. We mean that we want people to have a quality of life they never imagined before. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean that they are living in a 10-bedroom mansion, but that maybe their kid they have a kid that graduates high school for the first time in their family, or or whatever it may be, whatever wealth looks like to them. Just adding value to the lives of our employees is what we're all about.
Yeah, and adding value to the world. To be honest, we take our products really seriously. In 30 years, we've never had a product recall. Like, there's all these kind of standards of quality that we stand on the shoulders of giants with, in a way that people before us have done that. But like, one of the products that we make is a major factor in the diagnosis of cancer. And I know particularly in the Pap smear, so for cervical cancer, and every time I know a woman who gets her smear test, I think, like, our guys did that. Like, our guys made sure that she's safe. And it's this small way that no one thinks about or does, but it's on our minds every day. And so legacy is, I think, for us, like, the nuts and bolts of taking over a company is overwhelming. I mean, like, I don't feel like I've slept in 5 years. I probably won't sleep for 5 to 10 more. How do you keep all of it in your head, especially for me, who was not really ever thinking of being a business person on this level? Like, it's a lot. And COVID has made it
a lot of fun.
Even more of a lot. But I know for us, and I want to share this with the listeners, is that we've really kept that idea of our mission front and center. And when everything is really overwhelming and those family boundaries feel weird, we keep the mission and the legacy, because our dad's legacy is that he has done that for 30 years. He has impacted lives that people that we'll never even know about because of ripple effects. And he has created and generated so much wealth for so many people. How do we step into those shoes? The only way we know how to do it is to be faithful to the mission. Is that fair for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we make the mission, look the way that we want to make it look. It's not different than Dad necessarily in terms of what we're trying to do, but maybe the ways we go about it are, and trying to put that stamp on things is what we're trying to do nowadays. But but honoring and carrying that mission statement along is, I mean, that's the entire purpose of what we do.
Yeah. And that's why, I mean, we agree, like, you know, when Brian asked me to come on board and kind of permanently be a part of this, the pitch was not, do you want to come make dye forever? The pitch was, do you want to come love our people? And that's it. That's what we're doing. Regardless of, I mean, we just want to be clear that neither one of us is trained to do this by anything else than 30 years of life. And we are making it work every day because of that. And our skill sets kind of jive a little bit, I would say. But so if you were going to say, like, for anybody taking over a business, or even trying, maybe going into business with friends or family, like, do you have any like bedrock tips of like, hey, these are the things you need to make sure are in place before you go into this kind of relationship with somebody?
I mean, for me, the thing that's made me probably go through this the easiest is you just got to stay humble, because you're going into a situation where there's a lot of people that have been doing things right their way for a long time. And if you come in and you start tearing things apart and throwing all systems to the walls and everything, it's just not going to work. You have to remain humble and realize that as much as you have to implement in new policies and these things like that, you have so much you have to learn as to why the company works the way it does now. And that's extremely important, because that's helped us in our success, has been the fact that we had all the people before us that were able to easily transition to us, that we were able to go to for advice, to really plan things out the way that, with the collaboration with people. But if we just kind of, in the past, other people have taken over day-to-day operations around here and really tried to just put their stamp on it right away, and it didn't work.
It's gone poorly.
Yeah, it doesn't work. You have to remain humble and learn, and remember to learn from the people that have been there before you.
And I would say, if you're thinking about going into business with your friends, because the other element of our family business is that Dad's hired a lot of our friends throughout our lives. And actually currently, like you guys know, my best friend works with me. And Brian's childhood best friend has been my assistant for a little while. And we've all kind of done that. So even though Brian and I do not have the luxury of boundaries, one of the things that we're clear with folks that we work with is that they're allowed to. So like, we expect other people to turn their phones off at certain times and not check their emails on weekends and things like that. And that's part of our job. So I'll say that. And the other is that you really have to be clear up front about what your strengths and weaknesses are. So that's something that Brian and I have been doing since we were born. And I'm 3 years older, by the way. So 3 years and 4 grades, though, which is important because that means we never were in a school together, really. And I think that was very important.
True. Kindergarten and 5th grade.
Kindergarten and 4th grade, because in 5th grade I went to Penwood, remember?
That's right, yeah.
So only 1 year of our schooling, but I think that's really important because other siblings that are a little bit closer, like, they did a lot of school stuff together and we never did. So, and our friendship groups overlapped a little bit just because we both had really cool friends that we like spending time with, but not like in a way that we were all like hanging out at the Max after school or anything like that. Isn't. So we've had
the Max.
Not the Max. We've had separate but related lives for the last, 30 odd years. But I know very, very well what Brian's strengths are that are not mine. And I just get the hell out of the way. And he is the same way, which also then when one of us is dropping the ball, we know why. And we know we can just kind of like walk into each other's offices, shut the door behind us and be like, pull your head out of your ass. What are you doing? Like, this isn't good. And so that level of knowledge and trust is really important. I have no idea how we would do this if we both didn't have therapists and we hadn't done that work already and hadn't done the work with each other. This would be a different dynamic, I think. And it would be harder if we didn't have those tools.
For sure.
So communicate clearly, know what you're getting into and why you're doing it. And it doesn't matter what skills you come with. It matters how much you want to learn when you get there, I think, is kind of the summary of this convo.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you'll never walk alone. Don't throw away your shot. Throw the ring into Mordor. What are our other inside jokes? We do a lot of pop culture.
There are many, many of them.
So before we go, what is your favorite product that we've ever contributed to the dye of?
Oh, I mean, you know the answer to this.
I know, but I want them to know the answer.
No, so we got a phone call one time from a guy for a movie, that was looking for some green dye that he wanted to use. And there's only one movie in my mind when it comes to green dye, and that is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it turns out that's who they were buying for.
The Michael Bay production.
The Michael Bay production of Ninja Turtles, the new one that came out a few years ago.
Like 13, 14? Yeah.
I have the purchase order framed in my office. It was one of the highlights of my career that our dye was in a Ninja Turtle movie. And if you're watching this and you haven't seen the Ninja Turtles, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Please go watch.
But maybe not that movie.
Not that movie. Oh yeah, good call. Not that one.
Like, look at a screenshot of how cool our dye looks, and then go watch the first movie from the 90s.
Yeah, avoid Michael Bay.
Well, Brian, I'll see you in 3 minutes when we shut off this video and we do the rest of our lives. But thank you for being the kickoff for this series. Folks, I really hope that you learned a little bit eavesdropping a couple times on our conversation as you consider what a little bit more of what Brian's life is like and how it's different from yours, and maybe what this piece of my life that I don't talk about on this channel very much is like. If you've got a piece of your life that you'd like to share with the rest of us, maybe a chance for us to know about something that is a big piece of a hobby, an element of your life that you feel like we should get a chance to be empathetic with. The link to apply for this series is in the show notes below. And so will be all of Abbey Colors information if you want to dig in more to what we do around here on a day-to-day basis. Our Instagram is about to be refurbished, so I'll throw that one in there and make sure to give it a follow. As well as all, of course, the Abbey Research links will be below. Brian, again, thanks, pal.
No problem. We'll see you later.
Okay. See you guys later. Bye.